Hi, welcome to How to Be a Humane Leader Without Losing Your Job. In this podcast, we dive into compassionate leadership in today's fast paced business environment. With our experience and insights, we'll help you lead with heart while securing your career. Join us for engaging conversations and practical advice to elevate your leadership skills and make a real difference. I'm your host, Roberto Torres, a seasoned startup engineering leader, alongside Chris Ollerkin, a Fortune 100 IT leader. Today, we're discussing which methods should you use when talking to a toxic boss, a toxic report, or a toxic peer. Hey, Chris, how are you?
I'm doing good, and I hope to not be a toxic podcast host.
No, you ain't. Right.
And neither are you. So it's good to see you today.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, in this topic that we're discussing today, I think it might not be pretty common, but when we find that we have to talk with a toxic and there is a blank line, either boss, report, peer, or even though customer, there are some times in which we think that, oh man, do I have to? And we try maybe to avoid the situation because we don't know what to do, how to talk with this persons. So, have you faced something like this before?
Yeah, I think if you've been in the work, in the workplace long enough, eventually you're going to encounter these kinds of situations. It just happens. Like you're going to encounter all different kinds of personalities. But that kind of toxic, overbearing type person, one of the key things, to recognize is it's probably not you causing it, right? So you want to be, aware of the fact that, it's very rarely your fault. So instead, it's really learning about how do you control yourself to deal with that person and be successful in your communications with them, regardless of where they fit in your life as a boss, as a peer, as a direct report, as a customer, as your salesperson, whatever it is, right? Is just recognize first it's probably has nothing to do with you. So once you've kind of got that in check, you can really start to address the situation and think about different steps that you can take with them, to avoid things that trigger them, and really just try and figure out what's the best ways, and that's what we'll talk about, right? Is the best ways that you can still make your point with the person, but not make the situation worse.
Yes, yes, I totally agree with you. Recognizing in yourself the emotion that, first of all, the emotion that you have. Second, the emotions that this person evokes on you, and don't let them take hold of you because all these bad emotions, you might feel anxiety, you might feel, I don't know, maybe depression, or you might feel something negative. At first, you don't have to let these emotions take control of you. Since you have recognized who you are, what are your emotions, with this you could talk, how to just say, you could talk plainly, maybe without being so emotional, but because when emotions begin immersing in the talk, in the chat, they could go really bad, to a really bad path instead of the one that should go.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it escalates, right? If
Yeah.
pretending that I'm the toxic, you know, person in your life, and I'm starting to yell and I get louder and louder, and it's not because I'm deaf, I'm just getting really tense and angry at you. If you start to get angry back at me, then I'm just going to take it up a notch, and then you get more angry at me, so I take it up another notch, and that kind of feeds on itself. So the most important part, I'd say, is stay calm and do, take a breath, all those kind of calming things that they teach you, right, for keeping your blood pressure down. Don't let them escalate. Don't let them trigger you. You be the bigger person, be the one in control of the situation, and talk calmly. Take your time. Think closely about the words that you're going to say so that you don't use words that might trigger them either, right? Blaming them for something, etc., where you start to make them even more angry, will only, make the whole situation worse.
Yeah, and I think that I could add two things over here. The first one is to, yes, as you mentioned, talk calmly, by asking this person, please don't talk to me like this. To try maybe to lower down the highness of this person's voice, or maybe to lower down the stream. That could be the first one. And when you talk and when you ask this, maybe you could say also, because I'm talking to you in this calm way. Because if you, as we mentioned before, if you fall into this trap, this guy or this person wins, because he throw you a something in which I don't know how to say in English, but I think in Spanish, but whatever. He throw you a like a booby trap, and you fall into that trap. Everything goes to mayhem because that guy wins over you. So you must react wisely. For that, acknowledging your emotions is the first step, and second, it is to use other kind of emotional intelligence tools. No.
Oh, completely agree with you. And frequently, I have found personally with um, more frequently in a boss employee situation, right, where I'm the employee and they're the boss, and they're very angry, or they're just a very toxic kind of personality most of the time anyways. You really have to dial back your own personality. I have a very strong personality. I tend to jump in and interrupt people when I shouldn't, right? I try to avoid that, recognizing it in myself, but I try to avoid interruptions. But when I deal with a boss like that, you've got to be super focused on not interrupting, because that's one of their triggers, right? If you interrupt and you try and jump to the conclusion that they're trying to make, you've now interrupted them, and they get usually very upset with that kind of thing. So you really need to be focused on things that you might do that make them more angry, like interrupting. So bite your tongue, listen, make sure you give them plenty of time to exhaust the thing that they're wound up about, because if you give them enough time, it usually, starts to deflate once they get it all out.
And also they will say something they don't want to say if you let them talk. That is also something, well, that happens to me a lot. I let people talk. I'm paying a lot of attention. But when talking people talk to me, they say something they shouldn't say. But yeah, the important thing is, rather than put on, the focus on this person, it is to you. What are you feeling? Okay, what can you do about it? Don't be thinking about the future, because otherwise you will be with such an anxiety that you cannot withhold. Also, don't think about the past, because you will be depressed. Try to stay focused on the present. This is uh, a lot like mindfulness, in which they teach you to be present, to feel what are all the emotions that you have right now. And with that, you can have a better control. You can have a better breathing. You can stick, rather than having a lot of breathing and your heart pounding a lot and going way up to the sky. No, with that you could take control. So I think mindfulness could be something else that to be done, and also emotion intelligence. You told me before we started this that rather than saying what is the boss feeling, you have to acknowledge what are you feeling, how I am feeling. Yeah.
Exactly. So if you're feeling attacked, let's say using our previous discussion that wasn't recorded, right? Is if you're feeling attacked, relax, assuming you're not in physical danger, right? He's verbally attacking and yelling, that kind of thing, right? Relax, calm down. Don't say anything. Think about what you will say. Think about the words that you'll use calmly and say, this time I'll make you the toxic boss. Roberto, I understand what you've said. I don't think I feel that same way. So now it's I. I don't feel that same way. Don't say you, Roberto, shouldn't feel like that. You do that and it's just going to escalate, right? So
Yeah.
trying to manage your own emotions in that situation and diffuse it from Roberto, thank you for that information. I was not aware of that. I didn't know that you needed this done, or I didn't realize that this would be a problem. I will try harder. You're just trying to diffuse and bring the whole temperature down to the whole situation. So try and focus on yourself and say, I feel. Don't, Roberto, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't yell at me. You start doing that, it's going to go poorly. Instead, just try and stay focused on yourself, like you said.
Yes, and totally agree. And one other thing is that a wise toxic person might not scream at you and use another kind of emotions. So you have to acknowledge those also, because that person could talk to you in a calm way by being toxic. And if you talk calm, that might not be the solution. But what you have to do is to acknowledge it, not the emotions, and excuse me that I'm being redundant, not only the emotions, but what you have done. If this person says, okay, you didn't give me this, or you had a lot of mistakes with that, okay, try to bring hard data to the table, because, okay, this is the data that I have. You said right now that I should have given it on Thursday. Well, I had this email that said that you told me to deliver it on Friday. So, and I delivered it on Friday, and this is the proof, the evidence that I did right. So, usually, toxic persons are the ones that are going to attack you by one little thing. If you fall into the trap, in this booby trap, and you don't, if you let the evoked emotions fly away and don't take control of them, you're going to lose. And this is not a win lose situation. It is to be really aware of what is going on, to take control of everything that surrounds you within you, and to prove evidence. And when you give evidence to this kind of toxic person, they're going to try to attack you in another way. But if you had all the tools within you and all the tools of hard data and everything, these persons are going to maybe drop this harassment and say, okay, no, 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 and they will. And I think with that, uh, you will win this battle, but maybe not the war, but you know what to do.
Yeah, having the, if you have something that's objective, like mentioned the email or the meeting minutes or something that was clearly communicated where there's evidence to it. Unfortunately, I think with a lot of toxic bosses, they think, and they truly think They told you, no, I moved the due date up to Wednesday, not Friday. They think they really told you that. They may not have. And the only evidence you have is the email that it's in the project plan that says Friday. But they honestly believe they told you it was Wednesday. And this is also part of why they get very angry, is because it's questioning their own, being, their own memory. Like, I can't be wrong, but they might actually be wrong. And the more they realize they're wrong, they won't back down frequently. So they get more angry. So in that, bringing up the evidence, as you mentioned, just do it calmly. I have the email. I'm sorry, I didn't recall you telling me that. I don't recall it. See, you're saying you're not accusing him of not telling you. You're saying, didn't recall you telling me. I was going off the meeting minutes and the project plan. You're diffusing it with facts. So I completely agree with you. I just hope you get the facts, right? And if you know you're going to be dealing with a toxic person, you probably have to keep your fact management at a higher level, meaning taking written meeting minutes, publishing written meeting minutes, having a published project plan that has dates and things in it, so that you can potentially have evidence in advance. If you're dealing with this toxic person, whether it's a peer, a direct report, or whatever, having that knowledge that, hey, the past communications haven't gone well. Part of it is then preparing. A humane leader prepares. They read the situation. They realize that in the future, I might need special communications, meeting minutes, written project plans, etc., to help diffuse situations.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, totally agree. And let me tell you something. Two things. The first one, it is, let's say that you meet with this toxic person at the water cooler. There's no way that you might write down in a minute, but write it down on your mobile device or in your notebook, and go to that writing, you know. So it is okay. You wrote it down, and what you have to do is to send it to that person. Okay. Well, now it is the example of you, no? Chris, you're the toxic guy. Okay. Maybe you will send an email. Hey, Chris, at the water cooler, you told me that I had to deliver this on Wednesday. Okay, so with that in mind, there is an evidence on the email. So next time, Chris, the toxic boss, tell me something. I say, you told me at the water cooler, I sent it to you, and you didn't reply, say no or anything. So it has to be that day, not the following day, not the day that you have to deliver. That day, if it's something immediately, it will be okay. And now the beauty of technology is that your mobile phone, you can do right away instead of going to a computer and send it. Well, that's the first thing that adding to your stuff. The second one is, as a humane leader, we have to also teach our team members to recognize a toxic person, and also do these kind of tools, to do these methods and these kind of actions when they recognize, because we cannot, as a humane leader, um, protect our team at all times. There are individuals in which they will go to meetings, they will talk to other people, they will interact, there will be engagement. You cannot do that, but if you teach them these foundations, they will take hold, they will learn from these foundations, and they will act accordingly.
Yes, completely agree. It's part of, building their social awareness of how different, again, everybody's a bit different, and recognizing that, if we teach these tools to our team members, our peers, they'll be ready to deal with a more toxic person, so that they can learn. For me, myself, I would frequently, if I had to have a tough conversation with people, I would almost always try to do it sitting down And that's because I'm 6'2". I'm, in general, compared to most people, I'm much taller and bigger. So if you have to have a tough conversation with someone, standing puts me in a position where I seem more aggressive just because I'm standing taller than they are, right? Versus if we sit down at a table or at a desk and we're having the conversation, in general, we're going to be closer to the equal size. So sometimes that awareness of just your own persona with the toxic person is important. If the toxic person's a small woman and I'm a foot and a half taller than her, and I'm, kind of bearing down on her and she's, yelling at me, I might be actually scaring her. Even though she's being the toxic person, she may feel she needs to be very aggressive and defensive and yelling because I'm this great big huge, over 200 pounds next to a 100-pound, 5 foot woman. So be aware of yourself and that your body language, your stance, how you're sitting, are you listening like this, or are you paying attention to them and leaning in? That can trigger how the toxic person deals with you.
Yeah, and also your facial gestures. If you roll out your eyes, like I say, "Oh my God, this lady is talking at it," that's no good. You know, you don't have to be a rock, because you cannot be a rock when someone talks to you, throws you some emotion, something like that. But try to be aware that your face is the first thing this person is watching. So if you maybe, move your lip like you were going to laugh or smile or angry, there are triggers that are
Yep.
going to bring a really bad situations. Besides that, the one that you're having, no?
Absolutely. And I did think about one other thing that you can usually use to diffuse it, especially because toxic people, usually it's an emotional thing, usually. But if you can always focus on, well, what's the actual problem? So don't let your own emotions get involved. Try not to think about their emotions of it, but what is the actual content that they're really angry or being toxic about? Is it that the project is over budget? Okay, well, let's talk about what can we do about the budget. Let's stay, keep your comments and your questions focused on the budget, not about how they're slow, you're slow, you didn't do something fast. Fast is not an objective measure, right? So I have had some toxic encounters where, they were really upset about things that were really not very objective. So there was no way I was ever going to make them happy. Just, it wasn't an objective measure of something. So why even discuss that? Try and figure out what are the objective things that you can stay focused on about the project or that the problem is. And that usually can kind of start to diffuse the problem too, is being very objective about, that we missed the deadline. That's objective. Okay, let's talk about what can we do to get back on track to deliver as soon as possible. Let's not talk about how angry the customer is and how angry you are that I was late. That doesn't help anything. It doesn't get the project done any faster.
Mhm.
Maybe there's some features we can discuss that aren't as important, and maybe we could take out one or two of those features and be able to deliver not the whole thing, but part of it sooner. And that would, those kinds of things can help diffuse the situation, hopefully. But
Yeah,
also realize sometimes you just can't diffuse the bomb.
yeah,
Sometimes you
indeed.
just can't.
Yeah, yes, because with this example, you spotted the problem, but maybe this person, I don't know, instead of having a commute time of half an hour, did it in 1 hour, 1 hour and a half. So it is pissed off. You cannot spot the problem here. You have to say, "Oh my God, I'm sorry that you had all this commute time." No, maybe you cannot. And I think that you don't have to to try to find the truth. If you spot the problem at first, great, man. Go ahead, provide the solution, as you mentioned. But if it's something personal to this person, or something that you don't know, don't try to stick and find out. Okay, do these emotion intelligence tools, and learn about yourself. Do like a post-mortem after talking to this person. I felt this way, this guy was like that, and learn from that, because we humans, we are a pattern, we use a pattern behavior. We always stick to our pattern of doing things, and the toxic person will do the same. I know this is more like a strategic rather than tactic, but if you find out this pattern, you will know how to react or how to be prepared for that. But that is something that indicates that you have to stick with that person for a long time because you cannot move. If you're not being happy, or you being feel miserable or sad at a company, what I strongly suggest is create or update your resume and begin searching for a job and find a job that um, that doesn't have these problems, that people will say to you, oh my God, you have a lot of experience, that acknowledge your experience, your insights, your solutions, and move away.
No, I completely agree. At some point, if it's a reoccurring thing, at some point you got to realize you're this person, the toxic person's, I'm going to make it up, 45 years old. Odds are you're not going to change their behaviors. If they're 20, maybe you might influence them and you'd invest a little more time. But if it's, let's say it's the toxic boss situation, and therefore the boss is older than you, and I'm just going to make it up, they're 40 or 45, 50, something like that. You're not going to change them. And at some point you got to realize this is, it's making me upset. I don't feel like I'm being successful. I'm not being recognized for my contributions. At some point you got to say, this just isn't going to get fixed. It's probably time to move on. If it's a gigantic company, maybe you move on within the company. Just look for other roles, find a different boss. If it's a smaller company and there aren't other internal opportunities, yeah, it's resume time, and start looking on LinkedIn and find another place to go, because life's short. You can try and adjust your behaviors and be successful with a toxic person to a degree, but at some point, if you've tried different skills, different things, you've researched other methods to try, and they're all failing, it's probably time to move on.
Indeed, it is. Well, I think with this, we should do the wrap up.
Absolutely, sir.
Thank you. Okay. Well, thanks for joining us on another episode of How to Be a Humane Leader Without Losing Your Job. We hope our insights help you become a smarter and more strategic leader. Apply today's lessons to see the positive impact on your team and career. Catch all our episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor, and YouTube. Join us next week as we discuss something trendy in the leadership world. Until then, stay humane and stay successful. Bye-bye, Chris.
See you later, Roberto.